All right, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You were listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back, and it is time to get started with our morning analysis. And we are going to start off with the euro dollar as we normally do. So let's go ahead and get over there. All right, so again, I'm going to reiterate as far as the euro goes, it's a tough trade right now as far as what to do with it. You know, the question is, do you short the euro here after it's dropped? Just this, it's 2 days. I mean, it's gone from basically 109 and change down to 107 and change. We've lost 200 pips just in the last couple of days. Or do you say, well, I want to turn around and get long? I still think there's some more downside here, and the downside comes to 107 and a quarter. 107.27 is the 618 retracement. Yesterday we stopped at the 50% retracement. We bounced there. Today is probably going to be very similar in the respect of we should probably end up finding some support here. Now we don't have any data that's going to necessarily push us down there. So it's got to be, some sort of flows. And one of the things that could happen is, we might see gold, give us a intraday double top or something like that, and that could potentially push us a little lower. Or maybe it's gold that breaks higher that pulls the euro dollar up. I mean, that's possible as well. But for right now, 107 and a quarter, I believe, is going to be very strong support. And we're not too far away from there. So 107.25, and that's going to be pretty strong support. Below that, I mean, before that, you start gap filling a lot. If we make it below here, you're going to start, seeing a lot of gap fills. And this is what Paul was talking about, Paul Franco, earlier this morning. He was saying, hey, the euro's right back at this previous high, breakout point, if you will. We're testing that level right now. We are, but I still think that there's, the potential for more. Obviously the 786 comes down to, further breakout points, which would be like this, in the event that we, drop a little further here. So it's all very, very possible that we see those levels as well. Now, one of the reasons why the euro dollar is so weak is we had CPI data come in weaker everywhere across the board. The Eurozone flash estimate CPI came in 0.2% worse than expected. Core CPI flash estimate 0.1% worse than expected throughout the Eurozone. So weak inflation data is obviously keeping the euro under pressure. Now, yesterday we had a really key, you can see right through here, once we bounced. This is after the lunch money webinar, we talked about this. Here, let's get rid of this and let's switch this over. We talked about this previous support, once we broke through, acting as current resistance. We were bouncing back yesterday, and when we got to where my cursor's at, that's when I exited my long for a loss. Or maybe it was just shy of that. It was actually like 108.16 or 18, like right here. I said, okay, we're approaching that previous support, current resistance. I'm going to go ahead and take my loss off the table in the euro dollar long that I took yesterday. And we barely nudged above there, and then obviously couldn't do it and rolled back over. So this is going to be resistance today, and that comes in at 108.37, but I'm going to write 108.35, okay, roughly 0.0835. That's going to be resistance. Bias, we're still in a big range, okay? All right, let's take a look at the cable. Now the pound, yesterday, I managed to take a nice long here. We hit the 161% extension yesterday. Okay, and once we hit that 161% extension, I did tweet it yesterday morning. I ended up getting long and making some money here. It offset my euro dollar loss, which was nice, but you can see it's acting very similar. Now, the thing about the cable is that construction PMI came in a little stronger than had anticipated. So you notice how these lows are holding. That has become very important. These lows are going to be very important for bulls. If you guys want to take a long, actually, let me take that back. If you want to short the dollar, okay, you want to short the dollar and you want to go long some cable, this is your risk. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that trade because I don't know if the dollar's done this morning. I don't know if the dollar is um, done going higher. Okay, but what you can do is you can look at short the euro pound because the pound's at least holding up where the euros still looks weak. You know, so as the euro continues to look weak and the pound is firming, we can end up having a decent euro pound short trade workout. Okay, which I'm already short the euro pound, but I wouldn't even mind adding to my position size. All right, so right here, the lows are going to be very important. That low overnight comes in at 148.60 basically, and that should be pretty key support right now. 148.60 or 46.60. I'm sorry. Resistance, just like the euro dollar, the resistance is going to be right here versus the euro is at 108.35. Resistance for the cable is 147 and a quarter. And in my opinion, we're in a bearish trend, but the cable actually looks more bullish than the euro does today. So let me say that again, and let me remove this. I think in the cable, we're in a bearish trend. We're approaching our support, though, major support down here. We're in a bearish trend, but I think the cable looks better than the euro dollar today. Okay. Excuse me 1 second, guys. Okay. So here's the thing. I think what we should probably do, that is down at 145 for crying out loud. See, the thing is if we break lower from here, I don't know where we're going to go. You know what I mean? Hmm. I just want to try something. Interesting. This is like huge support for the cable. And the thing is, if we break down, I don't know where we're going to go. I'm assuming we're going down to 145 again, 145.50 or whatever. Um, hmm. Okay. Well, anyway, as I really don't know what to say about the cable other than, this is really good support from here. I mean, look, I don't want to go long the pound dollar at the moment, and I've already got pound long exposure though. I'm long the pound Swiss. I've been underwater in that thing for the last several weeks. I'm long the pound New Zealand. I'm underwater in that one, and I'm short the euro pound, and I'm making money there. But I'm already long the cable. I don't want to get any more. I don't want to buy any more pound. But I mean, if you're looking at pound crosses, you know, being on the long side of the cable here, if maybe the pound Aussie, you might consider, being long, this currency pair. I sold mine yesterday, but being long here, those are all possibilities. Maybe the pound Canadian, if you think the dollar Canadian's going to 140, 150 like I do, um, maybe long the pound Canadian, things like that. Those are possible trades. The pound yen looks like hell in it. Like I closed out of mine yesterday somewhere down here 24 hours ago, and we're even lower right now. So I don't know about the pound yen, but anyway, okay. Let's uh let's take a look at let's go over to the Swissy. So the Swissy, this morning I've been contemplating whether or not to be on the whether or not to sell mine or not. We held this support, so let's get rid of that from yesterday. We held that strongly. We approached the 618. When we were getting close to the 618, I was thinking, maybe I need to sell this dollar Swiss. But overall, I want to keep my Swiss exposure. That's the one thing that I really, I want to make sure I have A, Swiss short exposure, B, long dollar exposure. So that, the best thing I can do is being long the dollar Swiss. I get both of those in one. Um, so it's tempting when you're like right now I'm up 185 pips on a large position. Eh, You know, it's tempting to take profits right now, but at the same time, I'm sitting on a nice. I know I'm not risking anything at this point other than just profits. So I think the way we have to approach it is you can see the nice stair step action that we have here is any dip down to 1.0060. This is going to be nice area of support, and then we're going to have obviously resistance 1.0121. Okay. Oops. 1.0060, 1.0120, and that's going to be major resistance for the Swissy. We're in a range, but also understand longer term. The reason why I'm long is because of these monthly and weekly breakout points. All we did is we rallied, broke out, tested the breakout points, confirmed that this is a very bullish currency to be in, and then my cost average right now is 99.07 on my dollar Swiss. It's a really, really good cost average, especially if we break out to the upside and I start adding, we break out above 103 and we start making our way towards 110. The thing I'm going to want to have is make sure I have really good Swiss exposure. It's tempting to take profits, but I'm not going to. Let's go take a look at the dollar yen. And by the way, I want to ask you guys, how many of you are long the dollar Swiss with me? How many of you have dollar Swiss long exposure, and you're trying to ride this longer term um, you're trying to ride this longer term trade out with me. Because I want to know who's with me. Because I want you to also let me know if this analysis process is helping you out too. Because it's not just I get into a trade, I make money, or I get into a trade and I take a loss. It's managing winning trades too. I mean, this is one of the toughest things to do, is managing a winning trade, especially one like this that I think has the potential of going another 1,000 to 1,500 pips higher. Okay. So let's see. Alan is in this trade. Witt is. Lyle is. Paul is. Ben took profits this morning. Martin says, me, although I just took some off to reload a little lower if I get it. Christos says, huge margin requirement in FXCM. I know most brokers have larger margin requirements, at least double. But if you're like me, Christos, which, hopefully you never even come remotely close to reaching any type of margin calls, then you shouldn't worry about this. I'm lucky if I'm using, a quarter of my margin, maybe even 20% of my margin at any given time. Greg is long the Swissy. Dan's long the Swissy from 98 and a quarter. That's a damn good price, Dan. John's long from 97.95. That's even a better price. Kevin says I'm long the dollar Swiss from 98 and protected profits, moving my stop to 99. Good, Kevin. Okay, so there's a few of you guys that are writing this out. So these are the tough decisions when you're approaching, like in this case, a 618 retracement. It's like this is really key resistance. Flip side is if we broke that 38% retracement, this resistance yesterday, this should offer really great support on the way back down, 1.0030 if we dip. And I might actually even get long some more if we dip down here. Actually, I'll write that down. Like I said, I hope this exercise helps you guys, with your, management of trades. All right, let's talk about the dollar yen. So the dollar yen, this is exactly where I covered my dollar yen yesterday. 118 like 88, 118.89 yesterday. I covered my dollar yen short here, and the most frustrating thing about right now versus where we're at is I had an order to sell at 119.80 overnight, and it didn't get hit. So frustrating. I should be short the dollar yen right now. I know a lot of you guys, based on, I have to kill this order. Hold on. I'm removing my orders here because I don't want to. I don't want to have that open order now because I missed it. Okay, so anyway, obviously this low from yesterday is going to be pretty key support, and that low came in at 118.71. Actually, it's right here, 118.69. So 118.70. Okay, so resistance, it is obviously back here at 119, 119.70, 119.80, but even if we get a, I guess if we get a move back up here to 119.30, that's going to be a, that's going to be a good place to be on the short side, right through here. Because if we do, you can see this down sloping trend line. If we do make it up there, that's probably going to be a great place to be on the short side. Since I missed it overnight up here, if we get up to 119.30, I might short it today. Depends on how equities are moving as well, obviously. You're in a bearish trend, the dollar yen, obviously. Let's go over to the Canadian. So here's the dollar Canadian. Yesterday, just before the lunch money webinar, we were right here. And I was telling the guys and gals in the chat room, I'm like, I'm thinking about shorting the dollar Canadian. I didn't do it because I was like, well, we're right up against 140. And yesterday, crude looked like it was going to at least stabilize. So I didn't take the trade. And I think the wiser trade is actually trading a dip here. But I don't know if there's a whole lot to do at the moment. I really don't. I mean, because this right through here looks like if we break through the support, we can actually come back down here towards towards here. But 140 is still in the crosshairs. I still think crude looks extremely weak. You notice gold just sold off too. I think the 140 level is just begging to be hit, and just so you guys, everybody knows. I know you guys all know this, but I just want to make sure that, especially if there's some new listeners here. I haven't tweeted out a link to this webinar, gosh, in a couple of weeks. I should probably do that. Once we reach that 140, 150, I'm probably going to turn around and buy the Canadian. At least against the Aussie, the Kiwi, at least those two. I might buy the Canadian against the Euro cable. So in other words, short Euro Canadian, short pound Canadian, short New Zealand Canadian, short Aussie Canadian. But I want that, I want that target to be hit. And I think it's just a matter of time before we break 140. You can see how we're just kind of inching our way up. If we do break through here, I would assume any significant dip is going to be bought. So, okay, so let's consider this 138. What is that? 138.80 and 140. I mean, there's not a whole lot to do with it right now, other than it's just creeping higher. So 1.3880 and then 140. Obviously, that's key resistance. And I think the dollar Canadian's bullish. It's bullish until proven otherwise. I mean, it's a very, until we break below this 138, we just have to keep it with a very bullish trend. All right, when we come back, we're going to do the Kiwi, Aussie, Nordic currencies, dollar index, all that stuff, peso. Don't go anywhere. Be back in a few. All right, traders, this is Blake Morrow. You are listening to the Morning Edge webinar. I want to welcome you all back. So, okay, we got to get back into it, and we're going to go over to the Kiwi. So let's go over to the Kiwi dollar. So the Kiwi, it's been trading relatively heavy. But we didn't make it back up to 68 cents. So, I was kind of hoping yesterday we'd pop back up to 68 cents to give us that short. But what we did do is we came out of the ascending wedge. Okay, we moved to the 38% retracement. There we are. Okay, and thus far we're holding it, and that comes in at 67.05. We talked about that as being a really target for the Kiwi yesterday. We exceeded it slightly, and we went down to 66.93. So what we should probably pay pretty close attention to is making sure that support holds, because if that support breaks, that means the Kiwi is more than likely about ready to break down even further, and we're going to see a continued decline here. This is I would say, a realistic target. We should probably do it like this, because this number is different depending on what broker you're using. Okay, because that was a spike. That was that spike low when the Dow futures that morning on August 24th, Dow futures were down 100 points. Okay, when we were down 100, we were down 1,000 points pre-market. That's where we were at. We were down here somewhere. Okay, so I don't know where the right number is, but I think this is going to be a very strong support should we make our way down there. The question is, are we going to make our way down there or not? 66.90, let's just call it 66.95. That's going to be support today, 0.6695. Because if we break that, then that exposes, really a move down to 66 cents. Remember, the dairy auction results are this morning. They'll probably be out in about, I would say about an hour or so from now, hour and 15 minutes. It might come out a little early. It came out early, I guess it was 3 weeks ago. I think the dairy auction results, it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know if they took a week hiatus or not, but they came out a little early last read, I do recall. All right, so resistance for the Kiwi. $67.40. That spike high right there, 67.42. So 67.40. Some resistance this morning. Let's go over to the Aussie. All right, here's the Aussie dollar. We held this horizontal support yesterday. Here, let's go back over here. We held the horizontal support yesterday. I thought we'd bounce back, but the bounce has been very meager. You can see we just really couldn't muster up much of a bounce. This looks a lot like the euro and the cable as far as the price action goes. Very similar price action. So I'm going to write down support as being 71.50. That's just below these lows, but that is the 786 retracement. So 71.50, and then resistance back at 72.10. $71.50. $72.10. exchange environment. Okay, let's go over to the dollar. What happened to my chart here? Why are my fonts so big? There we go. Whoa. Huh. All right, that's fine. It looks kind of weird, but that's okay. All right, so here's the dollar index right up against everything seems bigger. Like my font seems a lot bigger right now. All right, so here is previous support, current resistance. Right, let's get rid of this fib really fast. Okay. Kevin says you can go to chart properties to change font size. I will, but actually, it's probably easier for you guys to read at home. Just feels funny, but that's okay. Okay, so we're up against resistance right now, obviously. Um, but looking at the dollar here, I mean, we might break out. That's the 618. So the next resistance, I mean, I don't want to write down that we're at resistance right now because we're actually breaking higher. Look at the euro dollar breaking lower. Euro's getting smashed. Euro pound's getting smashed. I like it. Um, anyway, okay. Next resistance is going to be up here at 99.75, which is the 786. 99.75. Support's right there at 98.70. Patrick just said something, and he said, Blake, what do you make of the fact that the euro has become bearish with risk aversion, whereas most of last year was bullish with risk aversion? That's a great question, and let's stop and talk about that for a second. I've noticed that the last couple of days, the market was risk averse, the dollar rallied, okay? However, notice right now, stocks are bouncing. The equity markets are bouncing higher, and the dollar is continuing higher. So it's it takes more than just one day or a couple of days to draw a conclusion on correlations, but those you know yesterday and earlier this morning was pretty interesting how that worked. Hold on, I'm going to put you on hold for a second. I need to blow my nose. Stand by. Okay. Let's go over to the U.S. dollar Mexican peso. Let's see if there's anything happening here. But it's coming down with the stock market bouncing back. It is. I don't know if there's anything to really do with it, though. It's probably not a bad short back down to 1717. But well, stocks are bouncing pretty good. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna go back here really quick. Look at the E-mini futures. trend line. Boop. Walter says, "What's wrong with your nose? Sounds like there's something in it." Oh, there is. Like boogers. I'm telling you, I've had a head cold ever for like the. Walter said, "Ew." Yeah, I've had a head cold. I just haven't been able to shake it since my Las Vegas trip. So it's kind of been bothering me. Okay, sorry. We got a few more to go. Let's go over to. We went over the peso. Let's go over to the Norwegian krona and the Swedish krona. I mean, right up and look at this ascending trend line. We just keep knocking our head right into it. Let's get rid of that. I mean, it's bullish. It's just it doesn't give you any place to buy it. That's the biggest problem with the U.S. dollar and Norwegian kroner right now. There's just nowhere to buy it. Any little itty bitty dip is just bought up immediately. Swedish krona. The Riksbank yesterday said that they are willing to intervene. That spiked up the dollar Swedish krona there. Yesterday, during the Lunch Money webinar, we said any dip in the U.S. dollar Swedish krona would be a nice place to buy it. And yeah, it just went boop and right into resistance here. I would not stand in front of that. Not with the Riksbank and what they were saying yesterday. There's no reason to be on the short side of that. Not right now. But I wouldn't be buying it here either. Look at how overbought it is on the hourlies. Man, this euro is just getting killed. Look at the pounds coming back down too. Euro new lows. This euro looks gross. We're almost at that 107.27, which is the 618 retracement, though. All right. So here's your bias chart. That's done for today. So if you guys want to take a picture of it, I don't think we're going to put any of the Nordic currencies on there or the peso. Dollar yen's back above 119. As